Probably one of the most useful things that you can build is a table. And I'm going to show you my process for going from a blank piece of paper in the concept stage all the way to a finished design in Fusion so that we can actually start to build it. So stick around. You can set something down on your table and it stays in, most of the time, it stays in the position that you put it in. If you try that somewhere else, and I actually need to design and build two tables, one for the back deck, one for the front porch as well. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to show you how I do it so you can see how easy it is to do it yourself. Most of the furniture that I build is for other people, but I do have a little bit that's left in my house that I can bring into the shop and show you a bit later on. For the first table, I'm going to be building it from this, which is salvaged Douglas fir. This came from a snooker table, so this is going to be a nice material to work with, and it's going to be very stable. It's really old. And this, which is some white oak that was locally cut down. I brought the logs to my place and I slabbed them up with the chainsaw, and that's why they're so rough. They've been drying for quite a while, so I do have some defects to work around, you can see here as well. So it's probably easiest to start with the top, front, side view, top view, front view, side view type of thing. But I think it's better probably to start with just an isometric drawing, and I'm going to start with basic shapes just to keep things as simple as possible. Now we could go with a circular top. The issue with the circular top is that we have a fair amount of waste in here. This is going to be all material that we would need to throw away since we're starting with a board that's somewhat rectangular in shape. So instead I'm just going to round the edges over at the corners. And that way we get a little bit larger table surface and we're not throwing away too much material. So we get some thickness to this. Now this being an outdoor table, we want to make sure we account for the huge variation in the moisture content. So it's going to rise some days, it's going to drop other days. So instead of having a big glue up, we're going to have multiple separate boards, just like you'd see on a picnic table, but a little bit more refined. And because of that, we're also going to have some boards below that act as a way of connecting them all together and providing support. Typically on a table, you'll see vertical legs coming down. That's a great way to transfer the load. But in this case, this is not going to work very well for us because these legs are going to be really wobbly on their own. So to stabilize them, we would need to add in some rails. And if we're going to add in rails, that prevents access from below and there's no place to put your legs. Sometimes you'll see these big round bases and then a post that comes down or a cylinder that comes down and that connects it to the top. That would work well. Does provide quite a bit of access in there, but I'm not really going for this type of look. And also this would be a special glue up for the post and it would be a fairly large glue up as well for the base. I want to stick to fairly small pieces of lumber. So instead is a foot design, and sometimes you'll see these in restaurants as well. So in this case, I'm going to have posts, but they're going to be inset, kind of like this, and they will connect into these feet. When we use the marker and clean this drawing up, it's going to look quite a bit better. So I have the feet positioned on an angle in relation to the tabletop. That's just so I can get them to come out a bit further, and it's going to provide a bit more support and prevent this table from tipping over. Now I could have just gone with the regular post and coming all the way down with the rails. The issue with that is that I would need to overhang the table to provide good access, and this being a pretty small table, it's going to be much easier to tip over. So I definitely want to have these feet coming out as far as I can while also giving good access in below. Normally I wouldn't recommend doing mortise and tenon connections on an outdoor piece of furniture. I'm going to treat this kind of like you would treat a boat and apply some sort of outdoor varnish to try and make this as completely waterproof as I can. So I am going to go with mortise and tenon connections in here. And I'll just pay really close attention to these areas when I apply the finish. For the back deck, it is really sunny, so I think what I'm going to do is put in an umbrella hole, and we'll also have some way of having the umbrella travel through these legs, the intersection of these legs, and then possibly into a steel base or into a concrete base. The overall dimensions are going to be 762 millimeters, which is 2.5 feet by 762. It is going to be 26.5 inches, which I believe is 660 millimeters. I probably want a radius or chamfer on the top edges. Also, anywhere where people can bump up against the table, I'm going to be adding chamfers as well. So the feet are going to be chamfered, the posts are going to be chamfered also. I might even chamfer the bottom edge of the table just to thin it up a little bit and give it a nice little detail. So let's go ahead and clean all this up with our Sharpie marker. There is our finished concept drawing, and you can see that I do not have the post on the very front. That's just so we can actually see through. So we're in Fusion, and I've already gone ahead and set up some very basic parameters: width, depth, height, top thickness, foot thickness, post thickness, those types of things. So if we look at the concept drawing, we can see that the legs are at a 45-degree angle to the direction of the top. So we do need to take that into account. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but the way I'm going to do it is to draw the top and the support blocks for the top first, and then I'm going to set a plane at an angle to that top, and then we'll draw the legs and the feet at that point. So we can set the width, we can set the height, and for the height I have 640 millimeters, and that's because I've removed a little bit for the leveling feet. Now I had a look at stainless steel leveling feet, and the prices are ridiculous, so I don't exactly know what I'm going to do at this point, but I do know that I need something, whether it's going to be 3D printed or I'm going to have to buy something. I'm not sure yet. When I first started to use Fusion, I had so many sketches, it ended up becoming like a big mess. So these days, what I tend to do is try and get as much on one sketch as I possibly can. Even if the object isn't starting on the same plane or ending on the same plane, I will still draw it. But then when I extrude it, I'll actually offset it from that plane for its start and its end position. Okay, so I have the top drawn, I have the gaps that are in between there, and that is a parameter as well, so I can play around with the gap size also. And I have the support block drawn, so now I can extrude. And I'll extrude all the top pieces at the same time, and that's going to be depth. Now the way I want to do it is I actually want to have it come equally forward and backward as well. So I'm going to do symmetrical and overall dimension. And again, we can go back to the sketch, and I'm probably going to need to play around with this, but we want to do offset, or we can do from object, and offset of maybe 100 millimeters, and we want this to be about 100 millimeters thick as well. So it's negative 100, that's looking good, and we can do a new body. So we'll be able to screw in from the support blocks into these boards. So I do need another one as well, so rather than extruding, we can actually just mirror it now. We need to work on our posts and our legs as well, and the best way that I found to set up a plane to do this is to do plane through 3 points. And the reason is because if I don't do this, I don't get the orientation the way that I want. I want to have this drawing going vertically. So we can create that. Now we're at the 45-degree angle. We can create a sketch, and you can see that it is vertical. The top is still at the top. Now I like to name my sketches as well. Post, foot. And before I go too far, I'm actually going to add the fillets on the top edges here, because it is going to change the look quite a bit. So probably 100 millimeters, something like that would work well. So we're going to pattern the post, we're going to pattern the foot around a central axis. So we only need to draw one post and one foot. So what we can do first is go project and project the intersection, just so we have some reference points. And we can draw a center line, and we will actually change it to be a center line. That's going to help us as well. We have this hub piece, so we need to draw that as well. And I think it probably could be somewhere around 3 inches, so that's 76 millimeters. And we want to have a distance to the floor or to the ground as well. And that's probably going to have to be somewhere around 2 inches, so 50 millimeters. And overall for height, 120 millimeters. It's 38 millimeters for the post that comes through, so I'm going to give it a little bit of clearance. I'm going to have 40 millimeters instead. So we have our post and we have our foot as well. These are just very basic. I want to keep it as simple as possible for now, just to make sure I get the proportions right. And then we can work on a little bit more curves and a little bit more complexity afterward. And the distance is going to be post thickness, 19 millimeters. In this case, I have the foot thickness set to 30 millimeters. And we want to create that as a new body. And to get a sense of what this is going to look like, I want to pattern this around the central axis. And there's with 3, so 3 actually looks pretty darn good, but it's not going to be as stable as if we had 4. So that's what it looks like with 4. So you can see we have nice access. You can have a chair at the corner, or you can have a chair in here. You have a little bit of leg room as well. You also have a place on top of these feet that you can put your legs up on top of also. The foot design does not look quite right to me. It looks a little bit off, so I'm going to just take a little bit of time to refine this. We want to have enough clearance underneath that we can put a concrete pad or something that's heavy under there. So we definitely want to make sure it's high enough. There are going to be some leveling feet on here as well. It's going to raise it up a little bit. So with that central hub, it actually ends up being kind of a good thing because I have some shorter pieces that are like this, and that way I only need to consider a foot coming out of this piece. I have some cracks I need to avoid. But it keeps the width of the part fairly small. So rather than having to have the part this total height and having a piece that comes around like this, instead I can take the piece out of something that is this size. And the grain orientation ends up being in a direction that is very strong. Unfortunately, we will be adding a connection, so it does add a little bit more work. But no matter what, there would be a connection. If we have the feet coming and intersecting each other, then there's going to be a connection at that intersection, so it would be kind of like a lap joint or a saddle connection. In this case, we're going to be using maybe more like a dovetail or a short tenon. So I have a nice swooping curve, very gradual curve for the top posts. And for the feet, again, I have some curves as well. I have 3 curves on the top and 2 curves on the bottom, and to me, that looks really good. And they're coming out a little bit too far as well. They need to come in a bit. If you happen to be having some trouble with your sketches and they end up upside down like this, and you don't like it, or at some weird angle, you can just bring it close to the angle that you'd like that, and then press this button that says look at, and it'll bring it just the way you need it. There's definitely a reason that most people like to keep things square, rectangular, that type of shape. It's a lot easier to make parts like that. But I have a CNC machine, and I also have a jigsaw and a bandsaw. So I've added in some curves. I think that's gonna look really nice. And we need to make a tenon, but we need to make the mortise as well. The mortise is gonna be slightly larger. So I'm gonna offset 3 lines, and I'm gonna say negative clearance or negative clear. And that will give us the size for our mortise. So we can do the exact same thing at the bottom here where it meets the leg. And we can extrude those 2 tenons. There's our tenon top and tenon on the bottom as well. And to create the corresponding mortise, we can do the exact same thing. We'll extrude. And now we have the mortise up in the top support rail, and we have the mortise down in the foot as well. I would like to see more or less what this is going to look like as a finished product. So what I'm going to do is create a plane along a path. So 0.5, I'm going to project the intersection of this part, and then I'm going to draw the chamfer shape that I like, 4 millimeters. I can sweep that along a path. The path is just this, and distance, 0.75, something like that. So I like the fact that the base is still fairly heavy. It's not going to be that easy to tip over. I like the lightness of that edge treatment on the top. It's a small detail, but we have the chamfered edges there. That's going to help to prevent some of those really sharp edges from prematurely wearing down. The posts coming in with a very light curve look really good, and it is a little bit wider at the top than it is at the bottom. On the bottom of these supports, we have a back bevel or a chamfer, and that way we don't really see it from the side, but it does still provide quite a bit of support. Is this overall the right size? Is it overall the right shape? So the way to check this is to export as a USD file or .usdz and export that, and I can email it to myself. And let me go outside with this, and I'll show you a little bit more about what I mean. So this is what it looks like just as the object. And if we switch to augmented reality, you can get a much better sense of how big this is going to be and what it's going to look like outside. And I might do a little bit more fine tuning, but overall it does look pretty good to me. And I've just taken a few minutes to create a very simple drawing. This is going to be something I can print out, and I have a good reference for all the parts that I need for my rough breakout. So it looks like I'm going to need, minus the leveling feet, 17 individual pieces. That's going to be multiplied by 2. So I mentioned earlier that I would show some of the tables that I've built. This one here is a replica of an antique table. The original was made of mahogany. This one is made of soft maple. And it's got some complexities in here, like the hand turning for the central column, and then these serpentine legs. And in this area, they're quite weak. So what you can't see is that I added a reinforcement piece in the bottom to strengthen this little area down here. And they come into the post with a sliding dovetail connection, and then this bottom piece here is actually the cap to cover that connection up. So this has lasted for quite a while. It still looks in pretty good condition, although the top is a little bit scratched up. So we have these stretchers and these connections that allow a little bit of movement in the top over time. And you can see here this little decorative piece that wraps all the way around is actually a separate part added to this skirt board on the bottom. None of these were done with the use of CNC machines. This was all done with hand tools. And this one is a hall table. This one is done from mostly solid wood cherry. There's a little bit of plywood in the drawer bottom. These are all hand turned, so each one is slightly different. And the curved apron around here is actually mostly solid wood. And I added a skein of cherry just to have it wrap around to look like the rest of it. This one has a French polish. I like to add a little bit more complexity, mainly because it's a challenge. So I have designed and integrated these full extension double dovetail drawer slides. And you can see, even though this is really shallow, we get almost full access to this drawer. There's not really a lot of storage in this drawer, but it was just kind of a neat feature. And for this table, I didn't use any software at all. I laid everything out full scale. Actually, it was only half of the table, and I laid it out on a piece of MDF, and that's what I used as my reference guide. So it's a bit of an advantage these days to be able to use something like Fusion and then move to the CNC machine for some of the complicated parts. So next week, we're actually going to be building the tables that we designed in this video. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification as well if you're interested in this type of content. And hopefully this video is showing you that it's easy to go right from the concept stage to a finished design ready to start working on. Thanks to my patrons for helping to support this channel and making these videos possible. And thank you for watching. Take care, and we will see you on the next one.